years old when I landed in St. John's, Newfoundland.
Go to St. John's in Newfoundland.
I went to St. John's because my mother had died, and my father gave me to Mrs. Brown, an aunt of my mother's, and that's where I went.
Okay. How did your mother die?
How did she die?
Yes.
She died from tuberculosis.
And what is that?
She was 24. 24 years old.
Did she have any brothers or sisters?
Did she have any brothers or sisters?
Any brothers or sisters?
Yes, I did. I had one brother and one sister.
What were their names?
What were their names?
One sister was Margaret, younger than I, and the brother's name was Tom.
How old is Margaret? How much younger?
How much younger is Margaret than you are?
5 years.
And how old?
How much older is Tom than you are?
I don't know really. He died when he was very young.
What did he die of?
I don't know.
Do you remember your father?
Do you remember your father?
Yes, I do. Just twice in my lifetime.
What kind of man was he?
What kind of man was he?
Very kind, evidently. Very kind.
What did he look like?
So, I remember being brought in a dory. If you know what a dory is, do you?
No.
Well, it's a flat-bottomed boat, something like a canoe, only the bottom is flat. And I remember being brought in that dory to the steamer that was going to bring me to St. John's, Newfoundland.
Ask if the father was in the dory with him.
Was your father in the dory with you?
Oh, yes, he was, yes.
Did he go with you?
Yes, he brought me to St. John's.
Was he a handsome man?
I don't think he was an ugly man. He was a fairly good-looking man as far as I can remember. But I remember landing in St. John's, I tell them about it, on a very foggy night, really a mean, drizzly, foggy night. And I remember Mrs. Brown looking at me and saying yes, that I did look like my mother.
Does she remember your father?
Do you remember saying goodbye to your father?
Do you remember saying goodbye to your father?
No, I don't. I remember asking about him and why he wasn't around, and I was told that from now on I was going to live with Mrs. Brown, and that was it. And I never referred to him after.
How did you feel about that, going to your aunt's?
How did you feel about that, going to Mrs. Brown's, your aunt?
Well, I seemed to accept it very well. I didn't ask any questions, and I evidently didn't fret very much about it. I just lived there.
You didn't wish she was back with her father, or she didn't want to be there, or something like that,
Did you wish you were back with your father?
No, I never did. I was too young to know that.
Did you know Auntie Brown before?
Did you know your aunt, Mrs. Brown, before?
No, not at all.
You never met her before?
No.
That was the first time you met her?
That's right.
I asked her what she thought of Auntie Brown when she first met her.
What did you think of Aunt Brown when you first met her?
Frankly, I don't remember. I know she didn't interfere very much with me, except to tell me that I was going to live with her, and that was it. And I really did have a good life with her. She was good and kind, and she educated me. She was strict in her own way, but never interfered very much with me.
What did she look like?
What did she look like?
Stern,
How did she dress?
and dressed very much like, what would I say, a Puritan. Tight waist and full skirts, and an apron always. That was it.
And that was your first impression. What did you think when you first went with her?
I didn't think I was too young.
You didn't think anything of
I was
it.
almost 4 years
You
old.
knew that your mother was dead and gone.
No, she was, yes.
You knew that she
I
was
wasn't
dead.
quite 4 years old, remember?
You're just about under 4 years old.
That's right.
So this is about 1900. You were born in 1896.
That's right.
So about 1900 you
That's
went
right.
to your aunt's.
That's right.
What kind of home did she lived in St. John's?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of home was it?
Comfortable.
Hold
Not-
it up to Grandma.
Comfortable and not luxurious. She kept boarders
Uh,
and had a house full.
Was it a big house?
Yes, 1, 2, 3 stories high with a basement.
Was it a long house?
Yes, it was.
Connected?
Eh?
Were they connected?
Yes, you were connected with another house.
Yeah.
But just with another house.
One other one.
Yes.
And in this, like a city street
Yes, it was.
in the city.
Yeah.
Right. What was the name of the street? Do you remember?
Georgia Street.
On Georgia Street.
Georgia Street. And the name of the house that she had, sort of the track for a Terra Nova house.
Terra Nova.
Yes.
T-E-R-R-A.
Terranova. Terra Nova house. She called her boarding house.
Terra Nova. And she kept boarders.
Yeah.
Mostly men.
Well, mostly from Placentia Bay from when she came.
Men who worked in the fishery? Or?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, all right. But it was steady boarders. They always
Oh,
lived
no,
there.
she no steady boarders.
No steady
No,
boarders.
no. Spring and fall.
Oh, how come?
Because they come in the spring to get their supplies
Oh,
for the
all
fishery,
right. All right.
and then they go out fishing, and in the fall they come in to sell.
All right.
That was,
And
was the way it
That's
was.
about the only time she would have boarders?
That's all.
And how many would she have? About 4 or 5?
Oh, no. She'd have 10 or 12 at a time.
Oh, my heavens.
She had 1, 2,
10 or 12
Three.
boarders.
4, 5. She had 5, 6 bedrooms.
Right. And how, is that how she earned her money?
That's how she earned her money.
And no other means?
No, she was a widow.
But she had a
And-
little money,
That's right.
and she had the house, and she bought
That's
it.
right.
And that's all she did. She stayed home and kept
That's
house.
right. And she worked hard.
Very religious woman.
Oh, yes. Very religious. In
So,
fact, I
you
don't
s-
know. I think she's probably in heaven. It was wonderful. She really had a way of living. She'd get up in the morning, go to Mass, go to the hospital, and she'd come home, and then she'd serve breakfast probably for 10 or 12 people. And then she'd go out and do her shopping for the day. She lived by the day.
Did she?
Yes, there was no charging. No, no.
no.
She paid her bills every day of her life. Her milk bill and her eggs and her groceries, all done for the day. So that if she died, she'd owe nobody a penny.
What do you know?
That's
Did-
rich.
Now, when you were 4 or 5 years old, did you go with her shopping and everything?
Oh, no, no, no.
What did you do?
Well, when I was I'd say she sent me to a private school,
Right.
to a Miss Moran. I'll never forget it. Miss Moran was an old teacher, and she had taught half St. John's in their early
Like
stage.
a preschool.
That's right.
Yeah, all right.
And when I went to her, she was an old lady, and she had about, I would say, maybe 10 pupils in her classroom. But she was a good old-fashioned teacher, you know.
Right.
Well, you weren't afraid of her,
No.
but
Right.
she was nice.
What do you know?
And
Right.
one day, I guess I decided I was not going to go to school, Michael. So my aunt took me by the hand, I remember that. And I could see myself going up the street now. And we had to turn right to where the school class was. And she opened the door of Miss Moran's classroom. She just seemed to have one floor. And she stood me in the middle of the classroom. Then she turned and she left me.
That's when you decided not to go to school.
So Miss Moran looked at me and she said, I think, though under a glove or a glove,
Yeah.
I think I understand. She said, go to your seat, dear.
Yeah, right. So that was it.
That was it.
Right.
I never refused to go to school after that. She said, that was my aunt. There was no beating me.
No,
No, none of that.
Nothing. No,
No.
right. Right.
So she brought me up and brought me into the schoolroom and left me in the middle of the floor. Right into the middle of the floor. And then she turned and she went out.
How was she? Was she a loving type of person?
No,
Very.
No.
Did you work?
Underneath, yes.
Yeah.
She praised me to somebody else, but not to my face.
No, right.
No, not to my face.
Just do your work and
That's right.
that's it.
I had to do my schoolwork. If I didn't, she'd be able to look on, but know why. Oh, yeah.
There. Now.
But there was no rule of terror. There was no rule of fear. Oh, no. And she never asked me to dust a piece of furniture, even.
No. No, right. Anne Marie is. Michael, right. Yes, she's downstairs.
So that in a way, my baby days are up to, say, well, all along. They couldn't be nicer.
Right.
In fact, she said to me one time, I remember, I want you to know, she said, that the nicest days of your life you're spending.
Yes, right. Where did you go to school? Grammar school?
Then I left there.
Yeah.
I went to the convent.
Oh, what was the name of that?
Presentation convent.
Oh, you went to the presentation?
Yes, yes.
For first grade, like, huh?
Mm-hmm.
About 6 years old or 7?
That's right.
Right.
And I remember the first arithmetic lesson I had. She was Mother Bridget. Sweet old Irish nun, you know. And I remember being taught units,
You're home early.
units, tens, hundreds.
Okay.
Tens of hundreds, you know, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
It's Mother Bridget. That's about all I remember the first days of school. And I remember when I wanted to study music, I started first with a Miss English. Then I decided, it's my decision for myself, that I wanted to study with the nuns. And I remember telling Mother Joseph that I'd like to study music at the convent. Well, she said, Liz, she said, Josephine is the music teacher here. And she go see her. I said, Father, I made up my mind I wasn't going to study with Sister Josephine.
Like her, huh?
I didn't dislike her, and I never went to her.
No.
So one day Mother Joseph said to me, well, Liz, did you go to Sister Josephine? I said, no, Mother Joseph. And then I'm not going to go. She said, if I don't study with you, I won't study here at all. Imagine.
How old were you?
I was about 12.
12 years old.
Yes,
Where you went to school, was it all girls?
yes.
The boy, it was a...
So she took me on.
Right.
And then she told me after years afterwards that she went to Mother Bridget's, you know, the one I encountered first with the
Yeah.
unit stents.
Yes.
She said, I think I have found a genius,
Mm-hmm.
meaning me.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I studied with her all the years, but didn't mean to.
Right.
I didn't want to go to Josephine, I don't know why.
So you stayed with Mother Joseph
All the
those
years, yes, yeah.
All while you were up there?
Yes, all the
What do
time.
you know?
Yeah.
She never sent you to anybody else?
No, eh?
When she felt you were far enough along, she never sent you to anybody else?
No. Well, I went to Boston.
That was later on.
Later on, yeah, went to
After you
Boston.
graduated, right.
Yes, but,
And you practiced at Auntie Brown's.
oh, yeah, first you had an organ, I remember that.
Miss
No.
Brown?
Yes, and then,
What was her first name?
uh,
Brown.
Ellen,
Ellen Brown?
yes. She was Ellen Curran.
And she never married. Oh, she did marry.
Oh, yeah, she was
She's
a widow.
All right. No
This is
children.
why she went to St. John's. She was nearly losing her mind after the death of her husband. And Dean Downey said, Ellen, he was a great friend of hers, take her father-in-law, he lived with her. Go to St. John's. She said, open up a little. He said, not too large a house, but take a couple of boarders.
All right.
Get your mind
Yes,
occupied.
that's right.
That's how she started.
No
And
children.
That's what she did.
No children of her
No,
own.
no children. And she was a wonderful woman. She reared 1, 2 before me. 2.
Right.
But you know, when I look back at it, she didn't give much satisfaction other than the fact that she did some good.
That's right. That's right.
That's all.
Which
I,
is
I went and left her.
which is worth. Well, at least everybody does.
Yeah.
Right. Which is
And,
worthwhile.
she never questioned anything, really.
So she had an organ first.
I had an organ first, and then
What was that?
Wait a minute.
I don't know how we got to know Fitz, we used to call him. He was a blind piano tuner, and he worked for Mr. Hutton, who was really the music dealer there in St. John's.
Right.
And I think he must have talked her into a piano, so I got the piano.
And then, how old were you when you went to Boston?
I was 18. 18. What 18?
And that was at the conservatory?
Yes.
Right. And then you studied there how long?
Well, I went for 2 years, but I don't think I stood 2 years. For a year and a half.
And then you went home, back to Auntie Brown's.
Yes.
And she paid for your schooling?
Oh, no, not all of it. The Archbishop did.
Oh.
And I think of the rotten deal I gave him. He was a wonderful man. He sort of took me under his taste as his protege, in other words. As Mary Ryan said, did you ever hear her tell it? When Emily Warren, who was the soprano leader in the choir, married, Mr. Hutton said, well, I've been informed that we're going to have a protege of the Archbishop for our soprano
That's
leader.
Archbishop Roach.
Yes.
Right. And
You know,
he paid part of your way?
Oh, sure he did. He paid everything. At the conservatory,
Oh, did he?
Oh, yes.
For what reason? What reason?
I don't know, just because I was a protege. Because he took a liking to me. I don't know. I was his little girl.
All righty.
Yeah.
You worked for him for a while.
Yes, I did.
Then you went home, and you stayed at Auntie Brown's.
Yes.
Right.
And I taught school at Littledale. That's where I
Littledale.
met Mr. Prunty.
You stayed at Littledale.
Yes, I did.
Which is where? Outside St. John's?
Yes, about 3 miles outside.
Presentation nuns?
No, Mercy.
The Mercy
it?
nuns.
Yes. That was quite
Well,
a
not
story.
yet, not yet.
Are you recording all this?
Yes, of course. Right. Yeah, what about it? Time?
Look what
Yeah, it
time
goes
it
for
is.
an hour.
No, look what time it is.
Yeah,
You know,
Gotta
I made
get
one
ready
very
for this.
foolish, when you're young, the things you do. At my wedding breakfast, I remember the cake came in. Your father said to me afterwards, what a thing to do. Well, he said, why didn't you speak up? And the Archbishop was starting to cut it, you know. Instead of letting him cut it as an act of courtesy, I said to him, oh, that's the bride's privilege. Let me do that.
Right, right. Uh-huh.
Wasn't that awful? And we went and we left that convent that morning, and we didn't even say goodbye to him, or thank the Mother Superior for the breakfast. Wasn't that awful?
Terrible, wasn't it? Like,
Oh, he couldn't get over that.
well, you were at Littledale for a good number of years then, weren't you? You were about
2.
20?
No, 2 years.
Well, when you went back home from Boston, you were about 20 years old,
Yes,
right? What did you do?
I taught at a school down the east end of the city for a while, for a year, and then the Archbishop sent for me,
Right,
and he wanted to know would I go to Littledale. That was the academy.
right,
I said, oh no. I said, don't ask me to live by the bell again.
right.
I said, I've done enough of that. Well, he said, go home and talk it over with your aunt and see what she says.
Yeah.
So I did, and she said, well, I think it would be better than going to the east end of St. John's in all kinds of weather.
Yes, yeah.
So I went back, and I think of the courage I had. And I told him what she said. He said, well, that's right. I said, there must be one stipulation if I go. I want my own music room. I don't want any music room shared by another music teacher. Because besides teaching, I have a lot of choir work to practice. And I want my own bedroom.
Right,
I don't want to sleep in the dormitory with the girls.
right. Which is all
So he
right.
said, I think that could be arranged. So that was my first meeting with Sister Perpetua.
Right.
She was lovely.
She's out at Littledale.
Yes. All the girls were frightened to death of Perpetua in her day.
Right. That was a boarding school for girls.
Yes, that's right.
Not very large.
No, but large enough.
A couple of hundred girls.
Yes, about
Yeah.
that.
And Margaret and Ruthie were there.
Margaret and Marion.
And Marion.
And Ruth came after her. And Ruth, they didn't know what to do with her. She wouldn't leave Marion's side, you know.
Yeah.
So the nuns came to me, and they wanted to know what could I do handle her. I said, well, I know nothing about her.
How old was she then?
She was 7.
Right.
So they said, see what she can do, because she's disrupting the whole class. She wouldn't leave Marion, see.
All right. Yeah.
So I went to her, I said, Ruth, typically Ruth, you know. She said, don't you like to be here? No. The face sullen, you
Yeah.
know.
Right.
Don't you like the nuns? No. So I said, well, come with me. And I took her by the hand, and I took her down to the recreation hall, and the young ones were having a grand time. They had a big ring form. I don't know what they were playing. So I just separated 2 of them, and I gave Ruth's right hand
Yeah.
into the left hand of this
Right.
child, and her left hand into the right. And that was it.
She
I
was
went down
fine.
half an hour after. She was having a wonderful time.
Good, all right.
Mm.
Did they all wear uniforms?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
So I fixed up Ruth for them.
and Margaret was about 12,
She is 14.
14, and Marion was about
Yes, about
12 or 11, yeah.
That's right.
And you taught all three of them music?
Did I teach Marion? Yes, Marion and Margaret. Not Ruth.
Not Ruth.
No.
And then Dad came. How did he
Yes,
come?
I had Margaret out to the house.
Oh, to your house?
Yes, she took a liking to me.
Oh.
So I took her out on a Sunday, and he came to take her home to the academy.
Right.
So he said to me, would you like to take a ride with us? Of course I did. And
To the
instead-
academy, yeah, right.
And instead of bringing me back, he took a ride around inside where there, you know, what you call roadside inns.
Yes,
And we went and had dinner, supper it was, at one of them.
with Margaret.
So, yeah, no, Margaret, we landed her at the
Oh.
And
Oh.
then he wanted to know if I could meet him the next Sunday. He called it the cathedral for me. I said, oh, no, you won't.
You sang at the masses.
Huh?
Why would he meet you at the cathedral?
Because we had Sunday vespers.
All right, in the evening.
Yes, right.
All righty.
I said, no, you won't. I'll be all over town. That Peter Prunty could pick me up at the cathedral. I said, you pick me up home.
Right.
So I went back home, and he came, I remember. I don't remember much about that. He had been there, and I hadn't arrived yet. So himself and my aunt had a nice talk.
All right.
You know the kind he
Yeah,
was.
right.
Blabber, just right. So when I came the second time, he was there.
All righty.
That was it.
How old was he then?
38.
He was about 38. And he had been in St. John's
Oh, yes.
for how many years
Well,
then?
not many. I think no more than 2 or 3.
And his wife died in
Yes.
St. John's.
Yes, she did.
Right. She was young,
She must have been.
and she was ill,
She has tuberculosis.
tuberculosis.
She contracted a heavy cold and never got over it.
Mhm.
So that was
And
it.
where was Peter?
He was there.
In another school?
Yes. He put him at St. John's. I'd rather St. John's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
He
okay.
didn't want to go, but I remember your father said that one of the brothers said, go on, Mr. Prunty. He's clinging to the father.
Yeah,
He wants to stay.
that's right.
So
Yeah.
they took him away.
Because he must have been, what, about
He was 9.
9 or
Nine,
10?
10.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, that's all for now.
Have you got that on?
Yep. We turn
What-
it. There you go.
What was I saying?
Oh, all different things. All right, now you got to tell me about when you came to New York.
Well, when I came to New York.
Right.
Oh.
After you were married.
After I was married.
Right.
I'm not supposed to tell how I met my husband.
You did. You
Did
told
I?
me that.
What did
You
I?
were teaching the girls out in Littledale.
Did I tell you that?
Well, tell me how the day you met him. You can tell me. The day you met him. When he came out to pick up. I think you told me.
He came to the house to pick up Margaret.
That's right. You told me that.
Did I tell you
I
that?
think you did.
And he suggested that I might like take a ride.
That's right. Yeah.
So I did. And after we landed Margaret at the academy,
Right.
we drove on a little further.
Yeah. I think you
Yeah.
told me that. Right.
And, but that was it. After that, he took me home. And then the next Sunday, he wanted to know if he could pick me up at the cathedral. Did I tell you that?
Right. And he met.
I said no.
Right.
He would have to come to my home and pick me up,
Yeah.
which he did. So from then on, during the week we met, I was going up Water Street in a trolley car. I was going into Littledale, and he was standing outside his office. He saw me in the car, and he pointed from the car to the car on the side of the curb.
Yeah. His.
Much to say, come on, get out and give him here.
Yeah. His.
Which
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
And I said, after that, we met for dinner in one of the roadside hotels. I said, what amused me in the beginning was the fact that he invited the chauffeur in for dinner with us,
Right.
which was very unusual in Newfoundland. But he did that. Whether it was to make me comfortable or the chauffeur comfortable, I don't know. But,
Can we go out?
and the next time, he invited the chauffeur in again.
Wait a minute.
which I guess he was paving the way very carefully.
Right.
So after that, the chauffeur was eliminated. And we met on our own. But he was not what you call a love-making man. He wasn't either. No. He never... he was understood we were going to be married, and that was it. And I didn't like the idea because I anticipated trouble with the girls. They were spoiled, and we knew they were spoiled. But that didn't make any difference to him. He said everything was going to be fine, and we were going to be happy, and that we'd live a long, happy life. Well, that was something I had to think about. So, and so which I did. That was around, let me see, he came back, and went away in August. He came back the 8th of December, the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. And I had the choir to think about, and I had Littledale where I taught to think about. So I went to the Archbishop and I told him that I'd stay with the choir for the Christmas service and that I wouldn't go back to Littledale. That was it. Yes. So January 10th, I was married. And I remember the Archbishop saying to me, one time I said, Lizzie, I will put either the veil on your head or the ring on your finger. So are you going to let me put the ring on your finger? In other words, marry me.
Yes, right.
So I told him I'd be very happy to do it. We had an altercation, which doesn't indicate anything in this affair. So January 10th was the day, and I went in there the night before, and he with Monsignor, Father John Rollins, assisted him. We were married. Up to Mass.
Right, out at Littledale.
At Littledale. And we left right away, without having the courtesy, I must admit now, very reluctantly, saying goodbye to the Archbishop or thanking him, and to the Mother Superior for giving us a nice breakfast. But I figured afterwards, when I get back to St. John's, that I would do that. But the Archbishop didn't look at it that way. No. He was kind of disappointed in me that I didn't say goodbye to him right, which I should have. But so those are the things you do when you're young. So we went to, what's the name of the place? Kelligrews, I think it was. And we spent almost a week there. Then we went back to St. John's, to the Newfoundland, it was the Crosby Hotel, and stayed there. So we went up to see the Archbishop.
This was in, January 1922?
Yes, 1922. January 10th, 1922, we were married.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So, then there was Ruth considered. She was with Mrs. Shannon or something like that.
Yeah.
Hannon.
Right.
And my husband at that time wanted to leave her with Mrs. Shannon, and I said no, because she wouldn't get anywhere with her First Communion if she did. So I suggested that we take her to Halifax and leave her there with the two girls. See, Margaret and Marion had gone on to Halifax. Yes.
Right.
And so that's what we did. So I remember the evening I was invited into Mrs. Shannon's for dinner. Hannon was her name, yeah. And we had spaghetti, macaroni, I remember. Just plain macaroni.
Really?
And no cheese. She thought that was just as nourishing as meat, as same vitamins as meat. So, yeah. And she gave me the rest of Ruth's clothes, said that I was the boss now. I never answered, never said a word to her. So we made arrangements on the Digby to go to Halifax. What a storm. Oh, what a storm it was. The boat was held up for 24 hours. So we took Ruth with us, and then we went to the hotel there in Halifax, and then went out Sunday afternoon to the Madams of the Sacred Heart to see the girls and to leave Ruth there, which we did. And then on to New York. And we went into New York by train. And by train, you go through all the upper part of Harlem, the most awful part of New York. And I remember Peter saying to me, what do you think about it now, Beth? I said, look, if you weren't there, I go back so fast you wouldn't be able to catch me. He said, this is an awful way to come into New York. So, at the Grand Central, who met us, with John Witherington. He was one of the salesmen.
With Standard Oil?
Yes. And then we went to see Mrs. Moons, a friend of Peter's. And she looked at me and she said to him, Peter, you like the young ones, don't you? And then he got interested in the Red Men again, and I used to stay with Mrs. Moons and I'd go to the meetings. And I didn't like that one bit. I didn't like it at all.
What
So,
hotel did you stay at? What hotel did you stay at?
it's Chelsea,
In New York.
Chelsea Hotel. It was what you call a family hotel.
Where was that?
There's a 23rd Street and 8th Avenue. It was a real old